top 10 list, best balanced decks ever.
Oh god.
Oh god, come out. We're doing that.
Herf. No,
We're doing that next. We're doing that next.
You and Herf.
Hey everybody, what's up? Circus here, coming at you with this week's Power Rankings video. The original, undisputed, often imitated, never duplicated Power Rankings. How you doing, Kamal?
That's right, and I'm doing great. And I'm glad to be here at the Power Rankings for another week.
Of course, we kid. A lot of people have been asking us over the past week, what do you think? DLM came out with their Power Rankings. How do you guys feel? You know what? I'm all right with it. They got a kind of a different system. They're tracking things different than we are. So different system, different scoring. So I think there's plenty of room for both.
Yeah, we are all right with it. You know, part of the reason why we love our Power Rankings so much is because we have the faith in it to stand on its own. Yep. And the information it brings to the table is really useful to players. And that's what we really care about.
Yep. So if people want to say, what do you guys think? It's fine with us. So keeping that in mind, let's move on. What do we do here in the Power Rankings? We track tournaments every week, and we see how decks perform in those tournaments, and then we assign them points based on how they finish. So if a deck gets a first place finish, it gets 6 points. Second place finish is 4 points. Top 4 is a 2 points, and top 8 is a single point. Now the events, the tournaments that we track, all have to have the same things in common, so that way we can compare and contrast the results. So all the tournaments have to be rounds of Swiss into a top cut. They got to have one deck with a 7-card side, and you can side in a skill. All right. So the tournaments this week that met those criteria were the Battle Phase Series, the Meta Series, and the Namikaze Cup.
Yep. And if you're interested in entering any of the Battle Phase Series, just know if you're a subscriber on Twitch or a channel member on YouTube, you get guaranteed access to all Battle Phase events.
Now, I know there's a lot of you guys that pay attention pretty closely to this stuff, that there was no Meta Freakly Friday this week because of Christmas. It was played on Saturday, but I kept the abbreviation as Meta Freakly Friday because otherwise you'd have Meta Freakly Sunday and Meta Freakly Saturday, which would be MFS twice. So I just kept it as MFF. All right.
We're still going to get comments.
I know people still, you know, that wasn't played on Friday, right? All right. So keeping all that in mind, let's see how we did this week. In first place with 33 points, second place is 23 points. So last week, the difference was only 5 points. So it's spreading back out a little bit again. What do you think is going to be, Kamal?
Oh, do I even have to guess at this point?
Yeah, it's Shiranui. I mean, Desperado.
It's Shiranui.
The new Shiranui. Yep. But look at the surprise up there, number 5, DDD.
Yes. And well, a couple surprises, right?
Yeah.
1, DDD, of course, and 2, Noble Knights is finally seeing points on the board for its representation. Noble Knights has been right behind Desperado in representation since the new meta, but they have not been able to score top 5 of the Power Rankings since their inception. This week, they take second place. So we'll take a look into their tournament run on the week in just a minute, but first, Desperado.
Well, one thing I wanted to point out quick is this is the entire list. 16 decks that scored points into the top 8 this past week.
A lot tighter.
Yes, last week and the week before, I'd have like 2 pages of this that we'd have to go through. Yeah. So the meta shrinking a little bit, I think, or people just
So just really quickly, let's think about some of the stuff that's not here. Finally, Valkyries, they did make the cut this week. They did make the cut. Onomatopoeia did not make the cut.
Dark Magician's been gone. Shiranui's
gone.
Dark
Magician, Shiranui, Arrow Mage. I don't see Invoke Stall. You know, I don't see a lot of these other decks that were
Invoked Roids.
Yeah, they're just not getting points. So we are starting to get into this kind of defined meta, but don't fret because the card pool is really going to expand a lot in the next couple of weeks. So things are going to still be shaken up, but you can kind of expect these next couple of weeks before the middle of January to this is going to be the same meta.
Yeah, this is what it's going to be until then. All right, so let's take a look at Desperado then. We pretty much know what this deck does at this point. But if you look, it's got one win. That was the Namikaze Cup. But then the rest of it's all second place, fourth place, or top 4, top 8. And that's where it scored most of its points.
Mm-hmm. Now, something I want to note, and we will see this when we look at some of the other decks as well, but just note Desperado's representation 142 on the week. By the way, this was a good week for tournaments. I'm pretty sure a lot of tournaments did fill up, so that's why representation is up. But the other decks in the top 5 also have highly increased representation from their previous weeks. Both Noble Knights and Invoke Neos showed up this week, and it shows in the points. They were not too far behind Noble Knights. You can see Desperado only snagging one tournament win on the week. The rest of its tournament points really just showing up due to how many people played the deck. And not much has changed for it besides last week. We talked about that a lot of people are finding other options to beat Desperado. And this is very true. Desperado is being sided against very easily, and we're starting to see up-and-coming decks that have very good matchups against it, like DDD, that you see was able to snag a top 5 spot this week because of that.
Well, yeah, when you have 142 people playing the deck, I mean, you're gonna score some points, and that's what we're seeing here. I mean, look at that. Top 8 in the Meta Weekly, three of them in the top 8. So.
Its conversion rate is up from last week, so
11% still isn't that bad. That's pretty good.
We're starting to see this hit the Shiranui numbers of the last meta, so I would say it is as strong, and boasting an 11% conversion rate at these numbers is very good for the best deck in the game at the moment.
Yeah.
And just not much has changed about it. Still very consistent in most decks. Still just they crumble to the threat of Karma Cut and being destroyed by Desperado. That's the thing. Most decks that have a good matchup, they don't instantly lose to being destroyed all at once during the battle phase, and they can survive one Karma Cut. That is what you kind of have to look for in a deck that kind of wants to overcome Desperado and can compete with it. If your deck has trouble doing those things and kind of has trouble recovering from a Karma Cut or destruction during the battle phase, then you're not going to see yourself do as well.
Right. So, well, there have been a lot of decks that faced up against them this week, and Noble Knights was one of them.
Yep, Noble Knights, Fire Kings, just to name a few, and but Noble Knights right behind Desperado this week. Finally, this week it passed up Invoke Neos. I did not expect that, but 2 tournament wins on the week from Noble Knights. We'll see to it, and I think the list has finally been optimized, and that's part of the reason why they're seeing a lot more play now. We're seeing this 30 card
full
balance.
30 cards, yeah. Before it was like 25, 22, or whatever. Now it's a full 30 cards.
Yep, 30 cards. So we are running, it seems, Divine Wrath now. A lot more discard traps. 3 Raigeki, 3 Karma Cut, not running Floodgates or Canadias like lists were in the past. And this list is different from most that I've seen. From what I saw on the week, a lot more were still clinging on to that disruption kind of thing, like for Floodgates.
Mm-hmm.
But this is still a very good week for Noble Knights. It's seeing success at Desperado numbers, 9% conversion rate to the top 8, and it's still just very versatile. And it's going to be one of these decks that, as it gets more support, as we see from the new box, it's going to just do what it does a lot better. It's going to Xyz summon with powerful effects, and it's going to be able to do that a lot better than it does now.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the support that comes out for it, because this deck is good now, but it could be great. It's going to be that deck everybody hates or has the potential to be,
Yes, so something to know. The main deck for this deck, I don't think it will change too much from its new support, but the extra deck, the new Xyz monster, is definitely extremely powerful, and it's going to give Noble Knights a whole new threat to deal with. So I would definitely look toward thinking about Noble Knights. If you're thinking about building them, do consider they're all in one place. And if you're thinking about countering them in the new meta, just know they need to be warriors. But their new effects are going to be pretty devastating. Going to be able to bounce cards like a Bryonic. Pretty crazy.
And their representation is up, so more people are starting to play the deck. They're starting to see, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. now that the deck has kind of been optimized, people are starting to play it more. So that's good. I like the deck. It's a lot of fun.
It is. It's very fun, I have to say.
All right. Up next, I think most people would call this an insect deck, maybe. At least we could start calling that now. Invoke Neos. It's a deck that just won't die.
Invoke Neos, it did dodge a bullet on the emergency ban list. I was very surprised that Fire Reload did not get touched on the emergency ban list.
Or Winda. A lot of people say Winda.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people were hoping for that.
Mm-hmm.
But Invoke Neos is still alive through another ban list, and Gozu does.
I was about to say, do you see who won? Do you see who that is?
Gozu does get the sole tournament win from this deck. 121 participation, much higher than Noble Knights. So this deck did not have such a hot performance this week, despite getting third place overall. And yeah, just its consistency carries it. We had the interview with Epic Shows, and you should go and check that video out, really, if you want a detailed, an in-depth look at this deck. But essentially, straight up consistency with the nerfed Alistair engine and the Fire Reload skill, allowing you to essentially get a pot of greed from just manipulating your hand, which is very easy. You can play almost any card out of your hand, so you can make use of the skill whenever you need it. And the Ritual Beast Contact Fusion monsters are just so versatile at dealing with threats that you can't deal with Purgatrio or Neos.
Well, I would say Gozu came in third place on the power rankings.
Yeah, Gozu did come in third place. I have to say this deck probably has been found out the most.
Because without his victory, this would be a lot farther down on the list.
Without those 6 points, that's 12 points.
It's a third of the points. So, and if you guys don't know, Gozu is what, like an 8-time battle phase champion now or something like that. Yeah. It's like 7 or 8 times. So he's farming the events at this point.
Yeah, I want to say, while this deck is very effective and very consistent, it's also very vulnerable to most of the control options that are easily side decked in by most decks. Just to name a few, DD Crow, Necro Valley, Chaos Hunter, those three, some of the most side deck cards in the new meta. All three of them demolish this deck.
Right.
So I think that is part of the reason why it's not doing as well. Just anyone siding, probably they're going to have a side deck card that screws over Invoke Neos.
Right. Just a deck that won't go away no matter how much people wish it to. Konami's just not ready to let it go.
It has to be power creep, man. New Xyz box. Come on, guys. We got to make it work.
Those Purgatrios still bringing in the money. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of Purgatrio, while you're in there getting your Purgatrios, you can pick out your Blackwings too, right?
Yes, you can. Blackwings maintaining their top 5 spot. I believe they've held on to it week to week. 54 representation. They're definitely in the lower echelon of represented decks in the meta now.
They're starting to fall down into that rogue deck status of representation.
To be honest, not scoring a tournament win on the week, but sitting at 17 points will score them a top 5 spot. And honestly, I just don't really like where Blackwings are. I feel like they would benefit a lot more from the Necro Valley version with Ancient Fairy Dragon, but they do when they do play that version, they lack the amount of synchro monsters that they can get on the field at once with level reduction. And that is oftentimes the game decider. A lot more decks now have to set up on vulnerable boards, and you have a much better time taking advantage of that when you're able to play level reduction.
Yeah, it just spams better,
But the downside is when you are up against an opponent who has considerable follow-up because they're a graveyard deck, you straight up cannot compete. If they're able to disrupt your Hogjo or your Raikiri in any way, then you will not be able to make your big plays, and you'll run out of resources that turn, while they'll still be able to pop off because you don't have access to Necro Valley to stop them.
Right. So, definition of glass cannon, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, I think each version of Blackwings has its disadvantages. That's why they're not winning out on tournaments, because they see those disadvantages at the later stages of tournaments more often than not, I think.
Yeah, eventually it just happens. It just happens where you brick or you just get disrupted or, you know. That's what they're vulnerable to. So, next deck. This is the one, Kamel. This is the one everybody's been waiting for with bated breath. Or have they? I'm not sure.
Oh, gosh.
Now, before we switch over, usually when I put the picture of the deck on the screen, I cut out the name. Because usually it's just guys making, like this one, honestly, for Blackwings, it was like Blackwings Big PP. I mean, that's usually the kind of stuff that it is. This one, I saved the guy's deck name because I thought it was pretty good. And check it out.
Duel. Deeply disappointing. Deeply disappointing deck.
It's time to duel. I thought that was good. That was a good little pun. Come on. Family friendly.
It dumps in at 5th place in the power rankings, winning 2 tournaments
on the same day. On the same day.
Same day.
Two different people. 2 different people.
Despite only 12 people playing DDD. Now, this is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
I want to say this is textbook people not reading cards. And I want to say they can't say it only won meme phase because it won the Meta Freakly too. So
right.
Yeah. So this deck, DDDs, it is widely known as a very glass cannon deck that has trouble surviving turn to turn. It often fizzles out.
Yeah, after their first turn. It's a one-turn deck.
Yeah, it pretty much fizzles out against any tiered deck because of the cookie cutter strategy that you need to propel yourself into the chain summoning from the extra deck. And if you're unable to do that in any duel, this deck would just not work. But now there's kind of a new way to play it. You can see they're playing Rainbow, Life, and Hatronade specifically in this deck to circumvent back row and just survive. Those are their 2 best options, and they don't have to play many copies of them, and they are effective at the low number that you play them at. But essentially, the most powerful card in this deck right now is the oh my gosh,
Pendragon?
The Beowulf. The Beowulf.
Okay.
Beowulf and Pendragon. Beowulf is the level 8 fusion monster. He is extremely powerful. He pops all back row in a standby phase, and it does not target. And a lot of people straight up do not read this guy's effect.
His second effect. His second effect is even worse, where he gives other DDD monsters piercing.
Yes, that is also, people don't read that.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous.
It's like the last sentence. People just read the part about the spells and traps, and they're like, "Oh crap!" and they don't finish the card, and then they get pierced.
Yeah, there's also a number of ways that you can be caught out against DDDs if you try to interrupt them at the incorrect time. Although it does not come up a lot because this deck does brick a lot, which is why I'm very confused on how it won 2 tournaments this week.
Right.
But essentially, the Swirl Slime lets you fusion summon from the hand. The Night Owl summons from the graveyard to synchro summon, and you typically summon the Pendragon with it, and the Pendragon can pop a Speller Trap, I believe, and then the Typhon, if it's in the graveyard, then you can fusion summon. And then any of those monsters, you have to be careful where you put them because then they can activate their various effects. And then the spell cards, which deal you damage during your standby phase, lets you search a DDD monster and fusion summon. So a good DDD player will show certain cards to let you try to negate them, and then they'll show you their other card that lets them fusion summon again or synchro summon again. So that is essentially how they play, and then they just Hatronade before they do that, and they Rainbow Life when you attack so they can get back the life points that they use as a resource with their continuous spells. So, the deck, it kind of works, but the deck is not consistent. That is the main problem with it. Too often than not, you do not get the hands you need to send you into those plays where you're able to get 3 triple D monsters on the field and beat your opponent. But you don't have to do that if your opponents don't read your cards. So that's why they're doing so good.
Well, I heard in the secret DDD Discord after Sunday night, they were like,
Discord?
Yeah, the DDD Discord. They said, what do we do now? We just won 2 tournaments one day. What do we do now? and the owner of the Discord's like, we just go home.
We just go home.
That's it. That's it. This is the best we're ever gonna do. I'm closing the doors on the Discord.
We're wrapping up shop now.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
They learned from Stromberg, you know. You get your wins and you get out.
For real. But DDD, congratulations. But guys, don't buy DDD, guys. Don't do it. Don't do it, guys. Don't be fooled.
Invest now. All right. Let's look at the at-a-glance stuff real quick. Overall representation, look at Desperado, Invoke Neos, Noble Knights, Blue Eyes.
And Blue Eyes won Battlefield Rising Sun. Insane, but not enough points. I guess they tied, right? So they didn't make it. Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah. Look at that. Mayakashi, though. Mayakashi. People still trying.
Yeah.
Weather Painters still heavily represented. Actually, that's actually gone up. Weather Painters, so people are starting to play that.
Weather Painters have. It's another one of those decks that just benefit from. I don't know how to play against this.
Right.
And it is very consistent. It is one of the more consistent decks of this meta.
It's one of the best balanced decks ever. We could probably put that at number 1 on a top 10 list. Best balanced decks ever.
Oh god.
Oh god. Come out. We're doing that.
No.
We're doing that next. We're doing that next.
Get me out of here. No, that'd be.
All right, conversion rates this week. Blackwings at the top. Well, tied with Desperado at 11%. So
that's pretty good for Blackwings, being able to tie Desperado, but a lot less people play the deck. But yeah, Desperado. I do not see them going anywhere anytime soon. If you're going to want to see something challenge Desperado, you're definitely going to have to wait until new box anniversary.
Right.
See what happens there.
All right, top 8 finishes. Desperado.
Yep. No surprise. Noble Knights doing a lot better. I am glad. I hope a lot more people pick up Noble Knights. Their participation this week was up. But the deck is very accessible, and it's getting support in the new box. I actually think we may have soon, like depending on how the new support works out, there may be a competitor for best way for the new player account. We may have a new
we're gonna look into that. We have the NPCs, the new player council, working on it. So
yep, just another week of Desperado, but their hold on the meta is weakening. I will say the tournament wins this week were more spread out than ever. Desperado only nailing a single one. This is their worst performing week since the new meta.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to stay around this range. Desperado's still going to be very strong, but it's not going to be oppressing the other decks. They're still going to be able to beat it. That's what we saw a lot this week. Just from my point of view, Battlefield Rising Sun, Blue Eyes was able to defeat Desperado in the final, and that Desperado player was undefeated the whole tournament. So it could definitely come up. Don't feel like, I don't want to compete because Desperado.
It can be beaten. Yes.
It can be beaten. Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys. Make sure you get in our Discord because that's where we host all these wonderful tournaments, at least the Battle Phase series. We don't host the meta ones or the Namikaze Cup. We just host the Battle Phase ones. So get in there and check that out. Check out the new player channel. Get your help in there. Check out Battle Phase Rising Sun. It's on at 6 a.m., 5 a.m.?
Thursday, 6 a.m. Eastern.
5 a.m. for me. Actually, I watch it while I'm getting ready for work. So make sure to check that out because I do. And we're going to get out of here. I'm Circus. That's Kamel.
Peace out, guys.
We'll see you next time.